Good day and welcome to Shipping Insight Podcast. We are delighted to welcome today Paul Sells, who's the CEO and president of ABS Wavesight. Paul, thanks for joining Shipping Insight Podcast.
Hi, Carleen. Thanks for having me. Very nice to be here.
Well, we're delighted and looking forward to learning more about what ABS Wavesight has in mind, but I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. You hold several patents and you joined ABS from Mira Labs. What were those patents in?
Thanks, Carleen. My background is in shipbuilding and in applied technology. So those patents are in applied computer vision and applying rendering technologies to solving construction problems for ships, essentially. So helping people visualize what they're going to build in 3 dimensions and helping them interact with objects as well as they add value to the things that they're producing.
Well, that's exciting. And I had the opportunity to try some glasses once, and it was really a different experience, but a very helpful one. Can you share with us? You joined ABS more than 6 months ago, but what was the impetus behind the formation of ABS Wavesight?
The impetus behind the formation for a while, I mean, the idea began before I came on board. Honestly, the executives at ABS were watching the trends in the market, watching these broader motions of digitalization, watching how products and software solutions can be brought to bear to add value to their to their offerings and their clients. So as you know, ABS is over 160-year-old organization that has been committed to serving the maritime trade and seafarers as well. And rather than approach the introduction of new technologies from a services perspective, the leadership at ABS had the foresight to put together a product concept, a product company. So the idea was to complement the offerings from the classification society with software products that were built and developed using modern best practices.
Excellent. Well, we know this is the decade of disruption and maritime is quickly digitizing. But why do you think that is? What is driving that?
This is a question I think about a lot. I mean, this is as someone who produces products, I look for the forces in the market that I need to keep an eye on as well while we're developing products. And so there is a lot of pent-up demand for digitalization and innovation in the maritime industry. It's a very pragmatic industry. It doesn't necessarily adopt things until they're proven and useful, and that's a great place to be for an industry that is so critical to modern life. The forces that are driving that digitalization, however, I think about it sort of 3 ways. Number one is the proliferation of constant connectivity. It is just changing overnight. So ships will, in the very near future, probably faster than we all give them credit, will be constantly connected with high bandwidth, low latency access to the internet. And that provides them the ability to use tools built on the modern web architecture, and to leverage data that's developed on the ship to be brought in from third parties or from the enterprise itself to improve operations. So one of those forces is broadened access to constant connectivity. Another force that's sort of driving digitalization is a lot of the decarbonization regulations as well. So what has been it has been true for as long as ships have consumed fuel, that as they move, or if they can operate more efficiently, they can reduce their fuel costs. But with the impending regulations and some that are already on our doorstep, like CII, for example, there is additional rationale to improve efficiency. So it's driving that's driving the introduction of new technologies faster than ever before. Not just the decarbonization regulations, but things like SIRE 2.0 in the tanker space, for example, just another safety regulation that has significant digitalization requirements. So there's the regulatory environment, and then the third sort of force that we think about when we're thinking about what's driving digitalization is basically consumerization. And there are a lot of ways to define that. We sort of look at it as this concept is everyone everyone in the modern world uses software in their day-to-day life more today more than they did 10 years ago. We walk around with supercomputers in our pockets. We have access to information in every facet of our daily life, and we become reliant on the way that we interact with it. Those behaviors, those expectations, also seep into the way that we do business. So the tools that we use in our day-to-day jobs, and our expectations for those tools, especially, are in a large part seeded by our personal experience and the way that we interact with technology day to day. So those are sort of three broad forces that I think are driving a lot of digitalization right now. I would have to also just emphasize that the ability to optimize operations once they're connected is sort of the undercurrent of all of that as well.
But, and you mentioned that that is an undercurrent, and one of the concerns is about receiving inputs from multiple platforms. I mean, what can we do about disparate data sources?
This is a challenge for every industry, of course. It has what can we do about it? It sort of depends on who you are. As a tool maker, we think about disparate data sources as opportunities for integration, right? So if you're a ship owner or a charter or an operator, you generate an enormous amount of information. You generate an enormous amount of data, and it's siloed in different systems. And so the degree to which you organize your tech stack so that it can be so that information can be shared more seamlessly will be a competitive advantage, certainly. Again, as a tool maker, we think about it from the perspective of how do we build robust application program interfaces that allow data to move seamlessly between our systems or from our systems to other systems that we don't manage or maintain. But if you're looking at a sound API strategy is the key word. So if you're dealing with disparate data sources, the desired outcome, the problems that you're trying to solve, should be the drivers of those strategies. So you could spend a lot of money, and time building really complex data platform architectures that provide a lot of ease of access to information within your enterprise. But you'd be better served to focus on what problems am I trying to solve today, and what problems will I be trying to solve in the future with the data that I already have, so that I can develop a strategy to provide that.
So, of these various challenges, what you're referring to as drivers, which do you think are the most powerful or impactful in terms of a pickup by the consumer, in this case, the shipping industry, for adoption?
Oh, um, it's it's a bit there are positive and sort of positive drivers, and then there are compliance drivers, right? In terms of actually driving adoption, I think consumerization is probably the most important. The easier your software is to use, the easier it is for you to bring on new employees, easier it is for your crews to turn over, to move from ship to ship. They can pick things up and use them quickly. And so I think user experience, to use a software development term, is the response to that consumerization driver. So really, we like to say we eat first with our eyes, whether it is a meal or whether it is sitting down to use software that we're going to use to solve a problem for work. Um, it, the ability to be able to sit down and use it quickly is one of the biggest friction points for adoption. So that would be my response. Would be, yeah.
Yeah, but it's also a safety issue because, as you mentioned, there are crews that are transferring amongst ships. So the
Mhm.
harmonization of those platforms, I would think, would be important so that that transfer would be as seamless and as safe as possible.
Well, a sort of a ruthless focus on the user experience is what can help make that as seamless as possible and ensure that when someone cruise a ship for the first time, perhaps uses software for the first time, it's as easily approachable as it can be to avoid
Mhm.
mistakes in data entry or operation.
Yeah. I've been in this industry for, let's call it decades. I won't define how many. And I've never seen so much change and expansion. Um, are these the drivers? Are they the requirement for this change and expansion?
Are they the drivers? Let me answer that. No, let me answer that this way. I think maritime, like a lot of other industries, is benefiting or is both benefiting and wrestling with um, sort of the logarithmic pace of change in technology and information technology broadly. I mean, it's a pretty profound difference. If you think about the amount of information generated um, every every 2 minutes in the modern world is equivalent to the amount of information that was generated for all of human history up until 1900. The systems that we have to use to be able to cope with this amount of information have to change and evolve rapidly. So we've kind of, maritime as an industry in a lot of ways has the tiger by the tail, and so does every other industry that's dealing with these broad advances in information technology.
Well, what do you see as the current state of the maritime industry in terms of this adoption? Uh, Are we behaving as other industries do? Are we slower? Are we faster? I mean, you're trying to convert a global industry and it has its myriad of challenges. So where are we and where do we need to be?
Um, I'm pretty optimistic in general. So I would say we are right where we need to be. Um, maritime is critical infrastructure for modern life. I mean, and it is a very physical industry, as all of your listeners know. When things go wrong, they have the potential to go really wrong. So again, it's a very pragmatic industry and doesn't adopt change in a reckless or uh, manner. So, um, it, is it slow? It's perhaps slower than some other industries, but it's moving along at a pace that is pragmatic. So, what I see is I see a lot of owners, shipping executives looking at their organizations, and they have access to tremendous amounts of data, but they also have processes in place that they rely on to safely run their business. And so their approach to adoption is rather pragmatic, but it is for very good reasons.
Well, one of the issues that I've been talking about for the last few months is the looming seafarer shortage, the mariner shortage in the
Mhm.
workforce. And by 2026, it's expected that we're going to be 96,000 mariners short globally. Um, how can we use technology to help attract people into this industry? How can we make that be one of the drivers, if you will, for joining our maritime industry in addition to its other benefits?
Wow, that's a great question. I think first we can acknowledge that we have to compete with people on a global scale, and the challenge of these shifting workforce demographics are not unique to the maritime industry either. I mean, construction, process automation, and manufacturing are sort of all going through, as industries, these big changes in workforce demographics, and so much so that there are euphemisms like the great shift change and others that are sort of discussed from industry to industry. So the good news is we're not wrestling with this alone. Um, in order to attract, train, and retain talented mariners, though, we have to position ourselves as an industry that is focused on the future and is focused on creating opportunity for people who would like to pursue a career in maritime. And so some of the tools that we can bring to bear there are pretty fundamental, just like using good practices and software products to run our business, all the way to some other sort of more bleeding edge things like using augmented reality, virtual reality for training applications, accelerating time to competency, and ensuring that you have remote support, perhaps for someone who is in the middle of solving a problem in a remote location. So lots of fantastic use cases to help people get up to speed and feel comfortable solving problems. But again, first acknowledging that we are competing on a global scale for interest in careers with both practical and technological futures.
But we shouldn't yet start to market coming into the shipping industry equivalent with video gaming.
Oh, no, that
No.
yeah, no, I don't think so. There are a lot of good training applications for some of that technology to be applied in, but that's two totally different industries, I would say.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you see as, the point of wide adoption for digitalization in the coming years? I mean, we've got different levels of sophistication in fleets, and sometimes that has to do with geographic regions or the trades. Are charterers driving this? Is regulation driving this? Um, how, what would be full-scale adoption in the shipping industry? What does that look like?
Wow, what does that look like? I think in a lot of ways it looks like it looks in the shipping industry a lot like it looks in other industries, with constant connectivity, with people using multimodal communication, using a mobile device or a computer, um, sort of constantly to check in and verify that work is being done, or to seek for opportunities to improve efficiency. But it's all going to be built on um, again, that backbone of prolific, high bandwidth, low latency connectivity that's sort of absolutely going to happen this decade. I mean, we're seeing it happen faster than we thought, of course.
Mhm.
And then, as this new generation of mariners comes in, their expectations for how they solve problems and their approach to solving problems um, is is sort of forged in the digital age from which they were born. So full adoption looks like it does just about anywhere else, I guess. Constant connectivity, um, ruthlessly seeking out opportunities to improve efficiencies, using information and improving the ways that people interact with that information.
Well, you just mentioned that we're changing and evolving faster than anybody expected. And yes, the satellite connectivity and the low Earth orbit satellites are improving connectivity across the vast swaths of the oceans. But what do you see coming up in the next 5 to 10 years? What are going to be the big changes that we can anticipate and that ABS Wavesight is facilitating?
Oh, the next 5 to 10 years. From a technology perspective, sort of belong to the question: to what degree can we outsource decision making to an AI or to a machine learning model, and how can we do that safely, pragmatically, and again in a way that we can trust? And trust is incredibly important when you're dealing with optimizations or AI specifically. As anyone who's used ChatGPT and sort of asked it a question to which it got a wrong answer. There's an example, or even trust when we're using simple things like relatively simple things like a maps program on our phone that helps us get from point A to point B. Just it wasn't long ago. It was only a few years ago where it would say you'll be there in 9 minutes, and you would say, well, I think I can beat that, or I think it'll take longer. And now, by and large, everybody pretty much just sort of takes it at its word because we've all learned to trust it, and the algorithms have gotten much better. So again, I think the next 5 to 10 years will be dominated from a technology perspective in the industry by the degree to which we rely on intelligent algorithms to provide insights and offer us the solutions to decisions that we face every day.
Well, in 2019, Shipping Insight's theme was actually Shipping 2020 because we were coming up on the low sulfur fuel mandate. It was called A Shipping Odyssey. And as we remember from 2001, A Space Odyssey, it didn't go well with HAL
Indeed, it didn't.
back in 1968 when that was conceived. So let's hope that we do better with AI as we move forward into the next decade.
Oh, here's to that, indeed.
Well, Paul Sells, CEO and president of ABS Wavesight, thank you so much for sharing your insights with Shipping Insight and your reflections on where we are today and where we're going tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, Carleen. Thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
I hope so.
All right.